we're coming in as a technology partner to a grocer to allow them to have an experience that is at least on par, or if not in some ways better than what Amazon and Walmart are doing, and do it extremely quickly. We build both a front end kind of little JavaScript app that can be inserted into an existing platform. So it's kind of like a one-line install that reuses most of the retailer's existing infrastructure for their product catalog, the add to cart capabilities, tying that in with analytics or retail media.
Welcome to the Retailgentic podcast, where we explore the intersection of retail, e-commerce, and AI agents, which we call Retailgentic. Our mission is simple. We are shining a bright light on the new agentic AI shopping megatrend, which will disrupt the trillion-dollar digital retail market. The stakes are high. Google, OpenAI, Microsoft, Perplexity, Amazon, Apple, Meta, and Anthropic are all fighting to be the consumer AI shopping agent winner. There are going to be some tough decisions for online brands and retailers to make. What happens to checkout? How should payments work? Should you continue to invest in retail media networks? What does the world look like when over half of your traffic is not from humans, but from AI agents? These existential questions are the tip of the iceberg. On this podcast, we're talking to industry experts, analysts, and influencers to get answers to these questions, identify trends, and best practices. This is Retailgentic, your podcast partner in navigating our AI shopping agent future. And now here's your host, Scott Wingo.
Welcome to this episode of Retailgentic. My guest today is Daniel Vitiello. He is CEO and co-founder of Cooklist. Cooklist's journey is a very interesting entrepreneurial story that starts with a B2C consumer app in 2018 and ends here in 2026 with a B2B conversational agentic agent custom made for grocers. It is currently available in 700 stores and available to 10 million consumers, which is an amazing story. We'll talk about that journey, how the whole system works, and then in typical Retailgentic fashion, we're going to go very deep on this. We'll talk about product catalogs, how CPGs tie into this, what's the Instacart story on this, all the things. And then finally, Daniel is going to give us some hints into his vision for where he sees Cooklist going. This is my conversation with Daniel Vitiello, CEO and co-founder of Cooklist. I hope you enjoy it, and happy agentic commerce. Welcome to this episode of Retailgentic. Today, I am joined by CEO and co-founder of Cooklist, Daniel Vitiello. Daniel, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Scott. Excited to chat today.
Yeah. As I was telling you in the green room, one of our most popular topics is our two most popular topics on the pod are anything around grocery and CPG. So yeah. Spoiler alert, you're going to check that one for the audience that has no idea what you do, but it's right there in the name, Cook. So, and then number two, anything about retailer hosted agents is always interesting. So the big guys are obviously Amazon, the artist previously known as Rufus, which is now Alexa for shopping, the much more wordy answer, and then Sparky on Walmart. So you guys are in both buckets. So this is going to be a fun conversation. Appreciate you coming on the pod.
Yeah, thanks. There's a lot of cool stuff happening in the space and excited to get into it.
Let's start with a little bit of background. You're coming to us live from Austin, Texas, where it's almost as hot as it is here in North Carolina. How did you get into the startup journey that led you to be an entrepreneur?
Well, I've been an entrepreneur since I was a little kid, selling popcorn door to door with Boy Scouts and making various crafts and selling them out in front of my house. Had a lawn and landscape business in high school, hired a bunch of my friends to work at that. And then have really been an entrepreneur my whole life. So, last company before Cooklist, we were manufacturing coffee grinders. And so we were in a physical product business, bootstrapped. And then the origin of Cooklist, though, actually was even before the coffee grinder. It really came from this interest in insights that can come from a lot of data. And I landed on, for some reason, loyalty card data. Is, I knew my parents used it every week when they went to the grocery store, and had heard some things about how the retailers and the food brands were able to create a lot of value from that data. And that kind of piqued my curiosity. And in the time, this was back in probably 2015, I actually called the number on the grocery store loyalty card and asked them if I could get a copy of all of my purchases. So it's kind of before there was online ordering with Walmart and Kroger and all the big retailers. And they told me that I had to mail a $1 check and write them a handwritten letter asking for my transaction history. And then, sure enough, a few weeks later, they mailed it to me, and realized that was probably a little bit too early to be building a business around getting data through the mail. But around 2017, following the Amazon acquisition of Whole Foods and, all the big retailers moving for online ordering for pickup and delivery, that's when we realized the timing was right to build a business around this new e-commerce space that's happening with all the grocery assortment available in a digital format, as well as your transaction history is available digitally. And so that was the origin of Cooklist.
Do you have a technical background, or you're kind of the business guy and then you bring in the tech talent to fulfill your vision?
Yeah, so I lead all of our technical teams. And really it was just me kind of coding away for the first couple of years, building out the initial platform, the integration with a lot of the retailers to be able to link your loyalty cards. For anyone who doesn't know, the core feature and kind of niche of the Cooklist app is a home inventory system. And so you connect all the grocery stores you shop at, it downloads your transactions into a digital inventory, and then can show you recipes you can cook with the groceries you buy. We have an AI chef in there now that you can chat to, and it has that context of everything you have in your kitchen, as well as help you place an order for a meal plan you've put together in the app. And it kind of does that reconciliation of, here's what you need for the recipes you want to make, and then here's what you currently already have in your home.
Yeah, so let's walk through that history. So you started in 2018 as an app, so kind of on the App Store type of an app, right? And then what we're going to talk to today is kind of a different delivery of the technology. So walk through the transition. And I assume maybe it's not even a transition, but the things you've added as you've kind of built along. I think that'd be a cool next thing to hear about.
The core theme, that's the thread that connects everything, is AI. So, starting back even like reading some of 𝗱𝘆𝗀𝗃𝗍𝗄's early books, talking about, following Moore's law and seeing what's going to be happening around the mid 2020s. He was talking about in the early 1990s. And so I spent a lot of time learning AI and thought that was a fundamental skill that could then be applied to anything else. And in the early days with Cooklist, we were using AI to turn unstructured data, so like the universe of product content and recipe content, using AI to classify it, bring structure to it, and then to understand for this retailer's product catalog that has 100,000 products, which of those can be used in each scenario for the universe of recipe content. So make sure we're not, naively trying to use cucumber scented lotion when we're making a salad, or if you have this kind of basic string matching, you'll run into all these issues. And then as AI progressed, from doing classification, we started doing content generation. So we actually had a TikTok series called AI Chefs, where we were using early versions of GPT-2. This was around that 2018, 2019 era. And then the early GPT-3 models, before ChatGPT launched, we were having it create and generate recipe content, and then trying it out for better or worse. But the model quickly got good enough that it was more about challenging it to do something creative because it was so good at all of the basic recipes. And today what we're doing is we've just stayed on the forefront of the capabilities with AI. So today we're in the Agentic era, and we're building the AI shopping agents, or an AI shopping assistant for some of our retail partners, as well as capabilities delivered in the Cooklist app. This was really the core transition, was going from pure B2C to now serving retailers with B2B capabilities.
And is the consumer app still out there and popular, or have you just made a jump?
Yeah, the consumer app is still available. We've got over 1 million people on it, and works with all the major retailers in the U.S. The B2B side has there's been a lot of excitement and demand from the market this last year or two, so it's definitely taken more of our team's attention. But we do still support the consumer app and actually have what we think are going to be some pretty cool plans coming for it soon.
And in my world of entrepreneurs, B2B is hard. B2C is 1,000 times harder, and doing both is like 10x harder than the 1,000 times. So you're definitely chosen the hardest path possible. So and you're having success at both, which is exceedingly rare. So congrats on that. There's companies that have pulled it off. There ends up being synergies in there, right? So consumers may go to one of your grocery situations and love the experience, and then download the app. And then they may be in the app, and they because you're working on the grocery side, you can improve that experience as they go cart to cart or whatever is happening in there. So there's a bit of a flywheel that some companies have been able to build. So I have a feeling you've already thought about all that. I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but just for the audience, it's kind of an interesting to think about both sides of that equation.
Absolutely. I mean, there's synergies. One, with the consumer app, we're allowed to kind of have the freedom to experiment and move extremely fast to try new things out. We can then take those learnings and then bring them to our retail partners. And then there's also synergies, right, where people shop at multiple stores, so they may use the experience with a retail partner to make their shopping easier there. But then they also use our consumer app to connect all of the places that they shop at, and have that that context of everything that they buy in one place. So there's absolutely synergies there and learnings that can be transferred both ways.
This is kind of this will make sense to you in a second, but there's doing what you're doing is hard. I've never tried it, but I can just like feel it's going to be hard. So I was reading an Adweek article before we got on, just totally unrelated, but they were talking about what happened at Con. All the ad people are at Con. I'm sure you've seen it in your timeline too. And they were talking about a grocery store was putting ads into a chat, and then that caused them to try the chat, and then they had the grocery store who's not one of your customers or related to you, and other than being in the grocery, also had a consumer app, and the chat was they had a great experience. So then this tester went, and this person has two pescatarians, and they asked the app the grocery store gives them about building a recipe, and it kept injecting cat food as the ingredient that you should have, because it was just looking at, I'm sure the AI was looking at things that are fish based, right? So cat food is largely fish based. I'm not a cat person, but I know that I watch the commercials, right? So I thought I think the consumer app has given you the ability to harden a lot of these capabilities, and then as you pull them into the B2B piece, it feels further along than you would get from just the out of the out of the box OpenAI or Gemini or one of the other models. You've got this layer, kind of think of it as a harness. You've got this recipe harness on here where you know how to make sure that you don't, for instance, recommend cat food.
Yeah, no, we actually, it's called our core identity system. And so something that we've developed proprietary in-house to solve this problem. And there's a lot of secondary benefits that come from it as well. So an example of a core identity that I like to talk about is hummus. So you could have a product that is like a plain hummus. You can also have a recipe, which is maybe like a salad wrap kind of sandwich that calls for hummus as a recipe ingredient. But then the third thing you can have is you can actually have a recipe to make hummus from scratch, just like blending up some garbanzo beans and olive oil. And so we're able to represent kind of this, trio of, you could have chicken enchiladas, which is both a product you can buy from the store, as well as a recipe where you make chicken enchiladas from scratch. And we take all the data a retailer has and classify it with that core identity system, which then allows us to do, if you're looking at the recipe, we can show you a meal that you could just heat and eat instead. And this kind of also goes into the core thing that I think makes Cooklist different than most of the other recipe and meal planning experiences. Is the problem we've always focused on is how do we assemble the groceries you need in a shopping cart as efficiently as possible? Right? We didn't really come from like a chef or foodie background where they're trying to push, cook every meal from scratch in this meal plan. We're really much more aligned with, we want to help you get everything you need, including snacks and beverages and paper products, and really just try to, get as close as we can to the end state, which is you just open the experience and your cart is filled and it's perfect, right? That's like the dream that we're working towards. And we, slowly making progress. I mean, I guess it's been a little faster than slow, but iteratively, right? Where initially it was kind of tools that someone is using to make the process easier and remove some of that friction, like doing the ingredient reconciliation. And then today it's the assistant where you can actually offload some of that research and decisions and work to, and it can operate on the context of your previous purchases, what you've told it in the past, what you did last week, and then kind of assemble that together. And the core thing that we say we're doing is we're moving from the era of search and select, where you go to the search bar, you search one thing, you select it, to now it's review and accept, where the agent or the assistant puts together a solution for you, and then you just review it. Maybe you need to make an edit, but for most of the time, you're just going to review and accept it and cut down the time and work that's required to do it.
Going back to the, so you started with this app, and then what led you to have this idea to do the B2B piece, to kind of say, hey, everything we've built in the app, or we have a lot of the parts, the Lego blocks you would need to power an on-site assistant for a grocer. What was that spark? Was it an inbound from a grocer who said, we need this? Or was it you looking at the grocer's experiences and saying, these kind of stink, I think we could help them do this better? Like, there's always kind of like a thing in there. What was the spark that got you down that path?
When we first started the company, we went through the Techstars Retail Accelerator program in partnership with Target. And even during that, Target was like, hey, we really want to white label some of this technology and bring it onto our platform. And we were very, maybe just naive. We were like, no, we're going to be only focused on consumer. We're just going to do the consumer app and make it work. And really for the first few years, we just had our heads down trying to build the best experience possible. And then it was inbound. So we had nothing on our website that said we did B2B, but some of the product teams within retailers were just going out and looking at the App Store to look for inspiration for meal planning experiences, shoppable recipe kind of experiences. And they, saw our app ranking as one of the top apps in the App Store for those kind of situations when you just search meal planner in the App Store, right? And we come up as one of the top ones. And they, reached out to us, had us participate in some, RFP processes. And we've kind of expanded rapidly in the amount of capabilities that we're offering with the retailers. Originally, it was shoppable recipe, or we called it like a recipe commerce platform. But then they saw what we were doing with AI, and that's when we were realized there's an opportunity to bring some of these conversational based AI experiences to retailers as well.
Yeah, so you had the inbound.
Yeah.
And you didn't say no, so that's a lot of entrepreneurs. You said no the first time, but then you finally were like,
we said no to a lot of companies, and think like appliance companies, other sort of
having the fridge order. Yeah, that doesn't make any sense. Yeah.
When it really, we saw what they were looking for, and we're like, this is exactly what we do. This is a great opportunity. Let's explore it.
And then how long, like, given the idea of the time frame, how long have you been working on the B2B part? Is that like just in the last year, or has this been a couple of years in the making?
It's probably been going for, I would say, about 3 years overall. So yeah, maybe like 2023, we first started doing the shoppable recipe technology, and then it has expanded. We also do even like product merchandising, so on websites using the core identity system, because we have this deep understanding of food and how a retailer's product catalog works together. If you're looking at a main dish, we can do a merchandising solution where think of the product carousel below a product detail page. And you have main dish. Well, we can do it. Others also purchased, and kind of use the cart co-occurrence purchase data to show items that you're likely to buy. But we can also kind of do a more, something that typically isn't done, where we show a side dish, and then and it's a side dish that pairs well with that meal type. right? So if we're looking at the chicken enchiladas, right, we could have a Mexican rice, and then we could have a salad that goes with it, a beer, a wine, and retailers can kind of define these meal components. And then we can use our core identity system to understand the course and cuisine that's going to pair, and then do the real-time calculations based on the inventory that's available at that store for the fulfillment method that the shopper is using.
So you did a fundraise. Walk through the little bit of the funding history. I looked up on Crunchbase, and it said you had raised about $3 million so far in your journey. Did you do you probably got the Techstars kind of a thing? Is that probably part of it? But walk through kind of where you are on the funding side.
So Techstars was 2018, and we did our initial kind of like pre-seed round, unpriced, and right after Techstars, we had a couple other RevTech, a Dallas-based retail technology firm, also participated, as well as some friends and family. And then in 2021, we did our first institutional round, priced round, that was led by Mercury Fund out of Houston, Texas, and had some other great investors come in with that round as well. And then shortly after that, we actually achieved profitability and haven't needed to raise since then. So, we're growing. We were actually just looking at this the other day, and I think we've had 5 years of over 100% year-over-year revenue growth. So, and we just run a really lean team, applied AI to use to building the technology that we build. So, it's allowed us to be very capital efficient.
So then the app, does it have a subscription component or like a in-app kind of? What's the monetization on the app?
Yep, it's I
don't need to know details, but like just the
it's freemium. So there's a fully featured. You can do pretty much everything throughout the experience with the free version of the Cooklist app, and then we have a pro subscription, which has kind of like AI powered features. So importing recipes by a photo, kind of using that AI assistant, the AI chef in there, and then as well as advanced dietary and meal planning requirements. So allowing you to filter by allergens, diets, things like that. So it's basically just extra capabilities, but the whole core flow of there's not like a limit on how many items you can store in your pantry or things like that. Basically power user features for the pro version.
I know I mentioned everyone's at con. So the CPG people love to throw ads into things. Do you have an ad piece in there as well that you monetize?
There is. We work with Ad Adapted to they are kind of a source the CPG demand on the ad side, and they're our partner for advertising within the Cooklist app.
So 3 years ago, you decided to do this B2B thing based on an inbound, and now here we are, 2026. We're recording this kind of basically July. When give us an update, like what's the scope and how much success have you had on the B2B side?
We're live at over 700 stores, reaching over 10 million shoppers. I like to say that we started with the biggest and the best grocer. We were very fortunate to have them come on as our initial B2B partners. And
is that the one that originally inbounded, or?
Yeah,
it worked out.
And it's worked out extremely well. So, and we're expanding. That reach right now, the number of locations that our assistant is live at is going to double before the end of the year.
How many grocery stores are there? I should know this, but I'm a general merchandise guy.
Like total number of doors in the US.
Yeah.
I mean, if you count the big box retailers like Walmart and Target and everyone, it depends really if you count Dollar General. I mean, they alone have, 10,000
I don't think
plus.
they're grocery. I don't know.
They're making a push, they're
I've seen they've got some freezers in the ones near us, but it's not everyone.
But yeah, it's probably on the order of, that 20,000, I would say, is the total number of.
So you still have a lot of wood to chop. 700. You got 19,300 to go.
Yep. Yeah.
By my estimate.
Lots of opportunity ahead of us for sure.
Yeah. Not that your progress isn't amazing already, but the 10 million shoppers is pretty solid.
But again, there's 300 million people in the US, so we're just at the starting line, really.
Okay, so I go to my favorite grocer, so is this kind of like a Rufus thing? So I see the little agent there, and what's the usual? I know the customer can probably choose the deployment and where this thing's injects, but what's your kind of like? If we thought about your flagship experience, walk us through the flagship B2B experience at thegrocer.com.
It's essentially a shopping copilot. So yeah, very similar to Rufus or 𝗹𝘆𝘀𝗲. Essentially, like what we're doing is we're coming in as a technology partner to a grocer to allow them to have an experience that, is at least on par, or if not in some ways better than what Amazon and Walmart are doing, and do it extremely quickly. So we've been able to go from starting a contract to having a live deployment in 41 days with, national scale. So, and the way that we do that is we build both a front end kind of a little JavaScript app that can be inserted into an existing platform. So it's kind of like a one-line install that reuses most of the retailer's existing infrastructure for their product catalog, the add to cart capabilities, tying that in with analytics or retail media. So the build requirements on the retailer is really low. And then we do all the backend work of essentially, we're not using like a third-party agent platform or service. We're just directly consuming raw language model APIs. But what we build is the platform and the scaffolding, the context engineering, which allows a
Palantir would call it the ontology. You have to like build this whole ontology on top of there.
Exactly. Yeah. So part of that's this core identity system, which we can automatically apply to their whole product and recipe catalog. But then also just gathering the business requirements. We kind of actually, it's almost like an interview process where we're having them, train a new digital employee to say, right, what are your values? What is the way that you respond? What are the merchandising principles? And how do you apply those when you're having a conversation with a customer? And we take all that information back from the business, and then we turn it into essentially like the agent's identity and its personality. And the tricky thing with these sorts of systems is they don't do the same thing every time you ask them. You can ask them the same question multiple times and you'll get different answers each time. It's a non-deterministic system. And so to be able to have confidence before you put this live to your customers, what we also build and where we spend a lot of time is developing an eval system, which is essentially, think of it as like thousands of sort of test scenarios where a customer may submit a question and then the assistant is going to generate a response. And then we basically have grading criteria that are aligned with the retailer's principles for what that response should look like. And then we can run it, tens, hundreds of times and kind of get a distribution of all the responses the assistant is going to generate, and also understand like when it does fail or do something that's outside of one of the requirements, what did that look like and how often is it happening statistically? And that has been really helpful for building confidence before putting these systems live.
So you go through this interview process, you kind of show them all the things, and you go live. Where do you usually like it to be invoked? Is it kind of like a little persistent thing with a brand? You have magic, you have AI Chef, but over in your app. But over here, does it usually have a persona, like Rufus or 𝗹𝘆𝘀𝗲, or I think there's Magic Apron now. They or Magic Apron and Red Vest. Whatever, the Milo's one has a little vest.
Yeah, Milo.
Yeah, Milo. Yeah, and then so that's probably a best practice. But then what's interesting is Amazon increasingly is doing, they're putting it on the PDP. So you could be looking at an artichoke or something and have it actionable there. And then maybe even Rufus is increasingly sending some search flow. If they detect this is a query search is going to kind of stink at, we might as well send it to Rufus. That's my language, not theirs. What kind of entry points do you recommend in this kind of flagship experience to the grocer?
It's a great point because this is such a new capability. It's one of those things where customers don't even know what to do with it in some ways. And so what we say is we have to inspire and educate shoppers on the ways that the assistant can help them. Typically, there's always going to be some kind of persistent button, in like the top right corner of the site that has the classic AI sparkles. But then as you're talking about with the artichoke, we, when you open the assistant, we have a few suggested prompts to kind of give some of that inspiration and education for what to ask. But we also have workflows which we can programmatically generate. So using AI to look at a product and then kind of working with the retailer and say, like, what types of questions do you want to inspire customers with about your products? Do you want to inspire them with prompts about details, just questions like, what ingredients are in this, or is it gluten-free, and kind of things like that? Do we want to inspire them with prompts that lead to using that product as a component of a bigger meal or a trip kind of objective? And then we essentially have like several categories like that. And then once we have those identified, we can say, okay, for each product detail page, generate prompts on these axes, and then programmatically generate them for the whole product catalog, and then they can show on the product detail page. And that's kind of where, as customers are browsing, they just see those. And yeah, I think Amazon kind of does the best job of it today of, really putting them in a lot of places so you can't miss it.
That's how I knew that it was converting better, because Amazon knows the monetization of every pixel down to 6 decimal points. And then once they started putting Rufus everywhere, I was like, oh boy, it's off to the races now. You won't be able to move your mouse without Rufus popping up. I'm a product catalog nerd, and that's kind of, we draw a lot of people to the show that really like to get into the weeds on this. How do you get their inventory? Because you're just dropping a JavaScript on there, you're just kind of sitting on top of the e-commerce experience and relying on it to have good inventory, and you're pulling the catalog from that. Is that kind of, is that a fair assumption, or do you have to, for a better experience, do you go pull it from other places or anything?
If a retailer wants, they can actually give us like a periodic sync and give us all of the catalog and inventory information across all of their locations. And then we will ingest that. And then when the agent for the agent, we build tools that it can use. So it has a search products tool, a search recipe tool, can have an update memory tool to save and store memories to use in future conversations. We also have other tools for accessing procedures, like standard operating procedures when certain scenarios are encountered, or references that could be, think of like FAQs or questions customers may have. But for the search product tool, we need to access what products are available at this location the user is shopping at. And so we can either ingest that periodic dump and run the query on our end, essentially that search query, or we can hit a retailer's external search endpoint. So what happens, the easiest thing is they already have a search endpoint that their clients, their app and their website will hit whenever someone is using the website to execute a search. And we'll essentially just make that same search query, but directly from our server. And so then the agent can actually do this kind of iterative process where it may search the retailer using like one term, but if the results aren't what it's looking for, it'll actually execute another search term with like more detail, or it'll, do 4 or 5 terms to really try to find the specific thing the customer is looking for. And just like you as a user of a website, you can apply different filtering options or things like that to narrow down the results. We also give the agent the ability, when it's using the search tool, to do things like, filter the results to only items the customer has purchased before. If they're looking for something that, the intent from their prompt is something we can tell that they've bought before. Or if they want something new, we can filter out the things that they've bought before, and then be sure that we're only showing them new items to try. But yeah, essentially just from the product catalog standpoint, it's ingesting it from either search endpoint or like a bulk transfer to our system.
It's pretty impressive the number of tools you're giving the grocer to manipulate this experience. I imagine that's been where a lot of the effort has gone. What are there any of those tools we haven't mentioned yet that are? So I like the memory one. That's pretty neat. How about even today, grocers are big on their flyer. Can they put their flyer in and have it kind of like know that, oh my gosh, I've got a big promotion on barbecue on aisle 6 or something like that?
Yeah, exactly. So we give the merchandising teams that capability. We have an internal admin system, which the grocers team can use to access all their product content, recipe content. Some teams even develop recipes and have, the nutritionists and the testers and everyone kind of doing the whole recipe development workflows within our admin system. But everything related to the shopping assistant is managed in there as well. So they can go in and, seasonal, different holidays, right? Kind of put together their merchandising campaign for 4th of July, or, we just had Father's Day. whatever those products are that they're wanting to promote both in store and throughout their digital experiences, the teams can input that information, and then we have ways of linking the suggested prompts directly to a procedure to like basically guarantee that it's always followed. Otherwise, the procedures kind of have sort of like a title and a scenario, and then the agent makes a determination based on the customer's response. Should I grab that procedure? Like one funny one is actually a fish merchandising procedure. And so if the customer is talking about making fish, it'll pull the fish procedure. And then if they're going to make the meal either that day or the next day, the agent recommends fresh fish. But if they're planning to make this, fish tacos or whatever, later in the week as they're developing their meal plan, then it'll recommend frozen fish. And so this is something that, was important to the retailer to make sure that behavior was there. And we were able to develop a procedure to have the assistant do that reliably without, I think actually a big thing, anyone who's considering something like this is, cost and speed. So the LLMs can be fairly expensive, especially if you're running one of the flagship high intelligence models, but then also speed, right? Like customers are used to search, and search returns extremely fast. And so we don't want to have to wait, you see the ChatGPT thinking and it takes 2 minutes, 3 minutes for a response. And so we have a lot of optimizations with our platform where the agent does that search tool, and it sees the fish product, right, that it wants to return and show to the customer. But instead of it having to transcribe out the title, the image, the description, the reviews, all that information that we want to return to the client, we have a very optimized system where it just returns the ID. And then we have a stream processor that's processing the token stream going from the server to the client. And it basically sees that ID. It then checks to make sure that ID is not a hallucination. So we actually do reconciliation between what the search tool.
You're evaling on the fly.
Yep. And then we just populate all the results from the database. So it's extremely fast and extremely token efficient. There's lots of little optimizations like that just, allow this to be.
And imagine you're calling all kinds of models in there because that, for this, I'm going to do that. And then, Anthropic's always down right now. So you have to have like a plan, that's never a good consumer experience. So you have to, for these consumer type, I know it's B2B, but it's B2B2C, that consumer is going to just bail on it if you it doesn't love saying, sorry, the cloud's busy right now, come back later.
And so that's where we're model agnostic. So we can plug in any LLM provider on the back end. And then with that eval system, right, this allows you to make a good business decision where you could say, okay, if we pay Anthropic for, Opus 4.8 to run it, what does it cost and what does it score? But then if we drop down and go to a smaller model like Sonnet or even an open source model, you can really just have a very objective comparison on the cost and performance with running different models, which is helpful from a business decision as well.
So it's hard to talk about grocery without talking about Instacart. How do you view, they're kind of over here doing their thing. Grocers kind of see them, this is my own interpretation. I think they liked them at first, but I think now they would rather just kind of do it. They would rather control. They don't like someone coming between them and the customer. So I think that benefits you. But do you see them? I know they try to then. There's part of Instacart, and I don't know much about this. I see them talk a lot about how they're trying to sell things to grocers too. But I imagine it almost like Amazon's tried this before and not gotten a lot of uptake with retailers because it's kind of like, why would I use my competitor's technology? Is that like I don't even know if do they have a competing offer? Do you am I right that people would choose you because it's kind of letting the fox in the hen house?
No, they do. I mean, they've actually been talking about it since last year. I haven't been able to try it yet. I've seen a lot of press about it, but I haven't seen it live. But they do have a AI assistant that is kind of a direct competitor. That's mostly part of their Storefront Pro offering, which is kind of their e-commerce platform for grocers. And we have, done some bid processes where we're up directly against Instacart, and we've won out because of some of the reasons you mentioned. We would assume
seems like a heavier lift too, because I imagine it's not uncoupled from the entire platform, whereas you can just be drop in. You're a la carte type situation.
Exactly. Yeah, we have lots of different capabilities, and another one that's more and more important to retailers today is the retail media. Right, Instacart is very wanting, if you're going to use one of their systems like that, they're going to want you to be using their retail media platform. So we can also integrate with Criteo or any other retail media platforms that a retailer is working with. And just, we kind of come in as the bespoke white glove a la carte service that is really here to serve the retailers and just try to make it easier for customers to get the groceries they need.
Where do you see the future of the company? Obviously, you got you got to go from 700 to 20,000. So I'm sure that's on your task list. But what are any other kind of forward things you're thinking about as CEOs and founders? We have to spend some non-0% of our time thinking about the future. So how do you see the future of the company, and then where do you see agentic commerce going?
We see a big opportunity, one, to keep growing the conversational assistant. We're also bringing those AI capabilities to other parts of the experience. So agentic search, where we're able to handle kind of like, you see Amazon doing already, where it's now a search or ask bar. We've developed a similar, but actually completely separate approach that's highly optimized for search that uses, high-speed inference providers like 𝗂𝘃𝗃, where we can still return search results in 100 milliseconds to 1 second using LLMs to handle the kind of difficult queries, right? Like if you type in taco night into a retailer's website, it's either going to key on the keyword taco or night. And we've seen some experiences where, you have like underwear, like adult underwear essentially showing up because of the word night, or like, sleep supplements and things like that. When really searching taco night, you want, taco shells or tortillas, probably some ground beef and cheese and sour cream. And so we actually use an LLM to break down that intent into a bunch of subcomponents, and then also use another set of LLMs to curate the results that are showed. And so we think there's a really big opportunity there, just meeting customers where they already are in the search bar, as well as agentic merchandising. So, for occasions, right, a merchant team may put together like a 4th of July homepage, kind of think of it like an end cap, right, of here's the 5 or 10 products we're going to kind of feature. But every shopper now gets that same carousel for 4th of July. What we've done is kind of trying to give the merchant teams superpowers where they can say, hey, we want to make a 4th of July carousel on the site, but we want to have kind of permutations based on these like 20 different axes. Think like price and dietary requirements and just preferences on brand and things like that. And so we can actually then run that agentic process to make 1,000 4th of July bundles, and then personalize them to the shopper, based on their transaction history and other interactions with the site. And so, I think the end state, right, that we're working towards is, ideally your shopping assistant with a retailer maybe even proactively reaches out to you and says, hey, Scott, I've got everything that you're going to need, from the store this week. Click this link to check it out, and then you can order it for pickup or delivery with one click. But on the other hand, we still see 50% of the time where people are adding items to the shopping cart with an AI assistant, they're going in the store and completing the transaction in the store. So there really is this omni-channel shopper that's kind of doing that planning and some of the decisions and considerations of what they're going to buy in the digital experience. But then they're still going in the store to fulfill it. I think for us with Cooklist, we're thinking of how do we make this synergy, right, between the retailers and then the consumers using our consumer home inventory app, even with helping things like forecasting demand, where we also work with some appliance partners, think of like smart fridges, and right, kind of really trying to make the context of what's in home and bring some of that to retail partners and, all at the end of the day, trying to just make the weekly grocery trip a whole lot easier and faster.
That's a lot to work on. So you've got a full, the backlog is always full when you're, even though AI lets us chew through it, then it just more comes behind that.
Right. It's like, AI was supposed to make it like, we've never been working more, especially.
Yeah. I'm totally in the camp of this creates more jobs than takes them for sure. Yeah. Because we can just your imagination is basically the boundary now, which is allows you to build these just incredible experiences. Appreciate you coming on. If people want to learn more about Cooklist, obviously you can go to the website, and then you're pretty active on LinkedIn. Any other places people could follow to kind of learn more about what you're doing and see your thought leadership, or is that the best places to go?
Yeah, cooklist.com, or you can send me an email, daniel@cooklist.com, and yeah, would love to connect, and always open to talking about ideas in this space. I think it's super fun.
Really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to come on, and I learned 1,000 things from this, so it was really, really amazing. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for the time, Scott. Really enjoyed it too.
Follow, rate, and share to stay up to date with Retailgentic, your guide to the future of AI shopping agents.